What do you do when the person you love most in the world needs saving? And there's nothing you can do to stop what's coming. What do you do when faith doesn't fix it? Prayer doesn't change the outcome, and life still asks you to keep showing up. Today's conversation isn't easy, but it's honest. And it's one that a lot of people need, whether they realize it or not. Because whether you've lost a child, lost a dream, or maybe just lost certainty, maybe you're trying to lead your life while carrying something heavy. This conversation is going to show you what resilient faith actually looks like. Not cliches, not quick fixes, but how to keep breathing, how to keep believing, and how purpose can survive even when your plans don't. Our guest today walked through the unthinkable. And instead of letting grief have the final word, she built something that's now carrying other families through their hardest days. This isn't just a story about loss. It's about what survives after loss and what might still be possible for you. So pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee or sweet tea. This one matters. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. I'm Tony Marr, and with me as always is my friend Robert Kell.
Hey everybody, we are so glad you're here. The Pulpit and Porch is where we kick back, put up our feet, and have real conversations about life, faith, growth, and maybe even a little sports and pop culture.
If you're looking for a perfectly polished sermon, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, around here, it's more about those honest, heart-to-heart conversations, like the one you'd have on a front porch with good friends. Sometimes we stay on track, sometimes we take the scenic route.
And honestly, that's half the fun, isn't it? We dig into the highs, the lows, and all the in-betweens of living out your faith in real life. Along the way, we may pull up a few extra chairs and invite some friends onto the porch to share stories and ideas that just may change the way that you see things.
So whether you're chasing your purpose, building your faith, or just trying to live a little more fully, pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us. This is the Pulpit and Porch. We got a seat waiting for you. Yo,
welcome.
I'm so excited about today.
Are you excited about today?
I am, because I love this family so much. And I'm trying to think, Jeffrey. Sorry, I say Jeff because he's changed his name on the social medias. He's now Jeff. He's no longer Jeffrey. We're Jeffrey and Katie in kids stuff when we were all at Heritage together.
Yeah.
And so it was, we have known the Schoondyks a long time. Jeff and I, one of the last videos I was shooting with you all, Jeff and I were sitting around. You and Reese had run out, and me and Rob and Jeff were sitting there, and we were laughing. And Jeff's like, "Yeah, Robert's dad fired me." And, so Jennifer's here with us today, but her husband is a heart doctor. And we'll get
it's
into
called
some
a cardiologist.
Yeah.
Is the real word for it.
I say things and Jeff just smiles and goes, "When you need me, show up." And so, which I probably need to start showing up. I'm getting to that age, but Jeff is just so fun, and he is so intense, and he is so funny when he wants to be. And, but anyway, we've just lived a lot of life together and a lot of moments. And Jennifer has, I guess we kind of got reconnected when one of the main things, or got really connected when we were doing kinder music, and Landon started showing up and doing kinder music when you were leading that and doing all those things. And then small group at church, and Colby and Brody and her group. And yeah, just a lot of fun times and a lot of moments together. So thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Jennifer, we've got Jennifer Schoondyk as our guest here on the porch with us today. And we are very excited to be telling your story and kind of gleaning from you lessons that I think are universal to our listeners, whatever you're going through, wherever you're at in life. I think that you're going to take something from this conversation. And my hope is that through the course of hearing your story and what you've learned through the last years of your life and the way that you're seeing your story come full circle in the lives of people that you're working with now, I'm hoping that maybe some people can see themselves in that story, and that over the course of the next hour or so, that wherever you're at, wherever you're listening, whatever you're doing, that Jennifer's story would be something that's transformational, something that maybe even if you don't see yourself in the story, that you see someone else in the story, and that it's one of those that as soon as you're done listening, that you hit share And so we're honored to have you here today. We're very, very humbled that you're giving us the opportunity, our platform, the opportunity to share your story, to tell your story. And we're very anxious in knowing the stories that are going to come out of this, the way that this is going to impact lives. And you've been impacting lives. The Lord has been using you to impact lives for years. And we just know that this is going to be a continuation of that and another chapter in that. So why don't you just start off and take us back? Take us back and tell us where this all began.
Well, it just all began with a big surprise. And Carrie was a big surprise. Jeff and I, we had a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and all of a sudden we were pregnant. It was shocking. And so we just went with it. And, we had our other kids when he was in medical school. This was a big difference. It was 10 years later, and I could buy brand new maternity clothes. Carrie had all the cool stuff that the other kids did not have. And so it was fun after the initial shock. And, then we got really excited. The kids were excited. And, we never really knew anything was wrong. We were just excited about it. And we had her, and she had heart disease. We found out when she was 5 days old that she had horrific heart disease.
No ideas of this before.
No ideas. Jeff is a cardiologist, and he is a scholar, and he's listened to all of our hearts a lot over the years. And so he was always listening to Carrie's heart. And in hindsight, I realized he was listening quite a bit. And at 5 days old, he actually was the one that said, I think something's wrong. And he was right. And we went to Wake Forest, and then we went to Philadelphia. And when she was 9 days old, she had open heart surgery at the at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So it was very shocking. So we had about 4 days there before her surgery that we knew something was wrong. And, our whole family was uprooted. So we started, we found out on the first day of school. So it was a crazy day. And we were traveling. I was just a few days postpartum and from a C-section. And so here we are. And the Lord showed up in so many ways. I could tell you story after story after story. It was just remarkable. The Bible says the Lord's close to the brokenhearted, and it's so true. Mm-hmm. And everybody was on our team. I mean, people were calling us, texting us, doing everything, checking on our house. People came to visit us, not just at Wake Forest, also in Philadelphia. Wow. And, it was just unbelievable, something that we had neither one ever experienced, or none of the four of us. The kids were right there with us. And so she had her surgery, and she got better. So at that point, another crazy, turn of events. All of a sudden, we were so excited. I just felt like it didn't matter what happened. My kid was okay. And we were so excited. We came home. We had some precautions. We knew that she was going to need more surgery because she had a pretty complex situation with her heart. But we came home and we enjoyed her, third child. She got to do everything, she didn't follow all the when to eat what rules. We just had fun with her. We did all kinds of crazy things. The kids still, as adults, our kids are young adults now, and they'll say, I can't believe you all did that. Our daughter will say, I can't believe that got past your filter and dad's filter both. But, as she started to get better in Philadelphia, we really looked around and we saw a lot of people who didn't have the things that they needed. We were in a much better position when Carrie was born, and we had what we needed. We had, savings account. We had credit cards. We had, Jeff had a job with paid time off. I was planning on staying home with her. So everything was okay financially. It was expensive, but we survived it. And we saw so many people at the hospital that didn't have what they needed. And that was really our first, that's where Karis Heart Foundation was born, there in Philadelphia, in our minds, in our hearts. And so we came home and we started talking about it, and we decided to start a charity. And Jeff, he's the smart one. He got it. He did all the paperwork. He got it going. And we just had a big party. We had Carrie there, and we said, this is what we're going to do. And I remember Jeff saying, we're not asking for any money, but we won't turn it away. And so people gave so much money and started Karis Heart Foundation, and Carrie was a part of it. Little known fact, it wasn't after she died. And we started at our local Ronald McDonald House. We went and asked, what they needed. We created a care package called a caring bag, and started from there. The first family we helped beyond a carrying bag was a family whose well had broken. The child was at the hospital in Cincinnati, and the dad was back and forth every weekend. The mom was with the child, and they had well water. They lived in rural Virginia, and their well broke, and they just had no funds. And so Karis Heart Foundation fixed the well, and it was just such a great thing. We met so many people. We talked to so many people, and that were going through the same thing. And so it was really good. And so then, a lot of you know the story. The day came 7 months later where Carrie went into heart failure. And so we ended up back in Philadelphia, and she had another open heart surgery, and she died from complications from her open heart surgery. So that was really the worst thing ever, was to see her suffer. Decided 17 years later, after a lot of thought, watching my child suffer was actually worse than losing my child. That was the worst thing that can happen, I think, to a parent, is to see your child suffer like that. But she's in heaven. She had undiagnosed seizures right after her surgery. And by the time they were diagnosed, which was not very long, but seizures can really do some damage. Yeah. She was mostly brain dead. She, was blind, and they said she would never wake up, and lots of things you never want to hear. So Jeff and I spent, about 12 hours trying to come to terms with it. And we just realized, why in the world would we keep her here as a vegetable when she could be in heaven? So the next day we, unhooked her from everything, and she went to heaven. And the Lord was really good to us. He was really close to us. It was very, very hard. I know there was a question in here that you'd asked something about pain and sorrow can coexist. And joy and sorrow can coexist. And that was definitely our experience. We saw the most incredible things. God spoke to us in the most incredible ways. We met wonderful people. We were able to make huge differences in people's lives. People made huge differences in our lives. And so that's our story. That's our story.
One of my favorite stories, it's always, I feel like I've heard this story because how many videos have we shot in the last decade or so? And I've heard this story so many times, and not just Carrie's story, but the stories of so many people. But one of my, when we talk about the kind of start and the beginning of Karis Heart Foundation is Jeff in the hospital that night. I just forget how much I cry when we talk about this stuff. This may be a very long episode. Long personally, is there Jeff in the hospital, and there was this mom that was trying to get her kid, the kid that was in the hospital, and trying to deal with things, and was having to go back to her. And I don't remember the whole story exactly perfect, but having to go back to their hotel. And Jeff was kind of what's the problem here? In very Jeff form, as what's the issue? Well, I don't have a way to pump, and and Jeff's Walmart's 10 minutes down the road. I can fix this. And that was one of the things that Jeff was he talks about a lot, you, just how blessed that your family in that moment was and continues to be, both of you would say. But he stepped in and bought a pump for a mom that, I say you, all your family, and that was taken care of. And he's there's just so many little things that we can do that it's just in a moment until you realize other people can't. You don't realize that. And I think that's been the beautiful thing for the family. And I'm sure, Tony, you probably have some thoughts and questions coming out of what what Jennifer just shared kind of in the story of Carrie and things. But I was just listening to you talk about the different, and y'all were in Philadelphia, I think, at that point in time. Yeah. And I just remember Jeff, and he tells that story, and I must have it recorded 2 or 3 times on a hard drive somewhere. And I don't know. That's just so impactful to me, the heart that you, both of you all, and your kids, but that he had in that moment, and just thought, oh, here's something. And I feel like it was this real starting point of, man, there's something more we can do.
It definitely was the first starting point. That family was from Tennessee, Knoxville. Here we were in Philadelphia, and that baby was in
forgot that.
the crib next to Carrie's. She didn't have her own room. She had to be surrounded by medical professionals all the time. And so did this other little boy. And, it was a different story for them. They were young, they're just starting out, and they just didn't have the things they needed. And we meet so many families like that at Karis Heart Foundation. We had somebody apply about a year ago. She applied and she was wanting a thermometer because her thermometer was cheap and had broken. I don't know the story, but she needed a special thermometer, and it was like $40. And that's what she applied for, because she didn't have $40 to buy this thermometer, and her kid kept getting sick. And, the doctor was like, you need a better thermometer. And he said, why don't you apply to Karis Heart Foundation? So we Amazoned her the thermometer, and it just made such a difference in her life. But, people did those kind of things for us all the time. The second time we were in Philadelphia, I had this ticket, and this was, I'm pretty technologically challenged. And this was, a long time ago. And I had to literally snail mail this ticket to pay it. It was like a speeding ticket, and I didn't have a stamp, and I wasn't going to leave the hospital to go get a stamp. And in my head, as a law-abiding citizen, I thought I need to pay this before it's due. And I told this other mom who was there, who lived close to the hospital. And, I was sitting in a chair, dozed off beside Carrie's bed. And when I woke up, there were 2 stamps hooked to Carrie's chart that mom had brought and put there, and she's still my Facebook friend to this day.
Now, 17 years later, you still remember, tell the story. I still
remember it. There's so many people who did things, I can't even get over it. There was a lady who was a feeding specialist, because, when your child's in the hospital, there's so much you can't do. And one thing you can do is give them breast milk, and that really helps. So they have all these people helping you with these things. And I just remember her telling me, you're going to be okay. Carrie's going to be okay. And that was her first surgery, that she was okay. And I remember looking at that woman thinking, you're insane. How could you say that to me? How do you know that she's going to be okay? And then I thought, maybe she's an angel. So
you had 7 months with Carrie.
Yeah, we did.
Tell me about her.
Carrie was very intense. She, Jeff and I fight. I think she looks like me. He thinks she looks like him, but it's just because she was bald. But she looked like me. But no, she acted like Jeff. She was very intense, and she would give me this intense look. Like if anybody tried to hold her that she didn't want to hold her, she would look at me like, Mom, take me back. And she was smart. She learned how to say hi, which is, 7 months. That's pretty early to be saying a word, but she would throw her hand up. And one day we were just eating, and she was throwing her hand up saying hi. And we realized she was saying hi. So we've heard people say, Carrie never said a word and she changed so many lives. Well, that is not true. Carrie did say a word. She said hi. She was smart. She was intense. She was fun. She was very loved. She had a, big brother and sister. So she basically had 2 moms and 2 dads and a whole community. She was a great kid. And, as hard as it was to lose Carrie, I wouldn't change having her for anything. I'm very glad to have had her, and I'm very glad that I'm going to get to see her in heaven.
So with that, what you just said, I think, is a huge statement. And so looking back on that time and what you personally were feeling as a mom of a little girl, looking back on that, what do you wish that people listening to this could understand about love and loss that isn't obvious? Because I think for those of us that have not experienced losing a child, I don't know that you can fully we think we know what it must feel like, but you just said something that you wouldn't trade that 7 months. That 7 months is still a gift. So looking back on your personal journey through that 7 months, and then the subsequent time immediately after that, what would you say to someone about what that means to love and lose? To love and lose?
Well, it's worth it. I'll say that. And listening to you speak, I would say to my listeners who don't understand that pain, I'm glad that you don't understand that pain, and I hope you never do. I really do. I don't feel like anybody has to completely understand that. I'm fine with people not going there. But, it's worth it. And, we're a Christian family. Jeff and I are Christians, and I feel like the Lord put Carrie in our path, and she lived the life she was supposed to live, and she died the death she was supposed to die, and he did it for a reason. And I think somebody going through something hard, they need to look for that reason. If they don't know the Lord, I don't know what to tell them except for he's the only place. I mean, I can't imagine having gone through this without him. I probably would have killed myself. I can't imagine.
Paul says, I don't know how we grieve, but not as those without hope. And
we grieve hard, but the Lord is good, and he does give you what you need. And he did give us what we needed. He got us through it. And I mean, I don't know that we'll even know half of it this side of eternity. But the bottom line is God is good, and I'm going to trust that even when I don't see it. You know, about 8 years after Carrie died, I was in a Bible study for people who had lost a child. And one of the questions the author of this Bible study had written was, how do you want this to have changed you? 10 years out, I was 8 years out at the time. She said, 10 years from, the loss of your child, how would you have wanted this to change you? And I really had to think about that for a long time. And I think I wanted to trust the Lord more. I just can't say enough good things about the Lord. I mean, we think that, we hear that, but I don't know how. I mean, I know a lot of my life, I don't know that I completely believed that. There's sometimes you just think, well, but I like this, or I'd rather do this. But, the longer I live and the more I know him, the more I realize, he's where it's at. He's where it's at. That's where joy is. And if he's going to put me through something, I'm going to trust him that he has a reason for it, and I'm going to do my part. So that's what I would encourage people to do when they go through hard times. Jesus said, in this world, you're going to have trouble, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world.
Short lives sometimes leave the longest legacies. What do you hold with you to this day from Carrie's life?
That's a good question. That was not on the sheet. What do I hold right now from Carrie's life? Well, a lot of things.
What legacy of hers do you hold on to?
Well, she made a difference. I love that she has a legacy. I love that I'm going to know her more. I mean, at 7 months old, you only know them so well, but I love that she has a legacy. I mean, when you lose somebody, especially a child, you want people to remember them. And people do remember her because her name is in a lot of places. And so I love that she has a legacy.
How did she make a difference to you? What do you still hold when you think of her? What does that stir in you? What emotions does that stir in you? And I guess what I'm trying to get at is sure, she has a legacy far beyond, but how are you changed because of her life?
Well, that's a loaded question. One thing that I feel like the Lord has taught me like a million lessons, but one thing that was really intense for me was the day I realized, God understands because he lost a child too, and I always think about that now whenever we have communion at church. I mean, that's what I think about. And I think about how much I want people to remember Carrie.
Wow.
And I think about how much God wants people to remember Jesus. I know that's this very tight place to walk. I'm not trying to compare Carrie with Jesus. I'm just trying to I feel like I more relate to God's sacrifice. Relate to, I don't know if that's the right word either, but
understand.
It just does maybe just a tiny little fraction more understanding and appreciation than I had before. Because, I mean, yes, God was with us, and yes, he helped us, and it was good, but it was also horrible.
How did your experience with what you guys went through with Carrie, how did that, obviously you just talked about how you guys formed and had the initial ideas for Karis Heart Foundation and then launching that. How did your personal experiences, how do those still play out in the lives of the families that you're working with?
Well, I can understand them. A lot of times people, when they know, like lots of times people don't know their medical crisis is coming, but lots of times they do, they find out while they're pregnant, or they know that the surgery is coming up, and they're really afraid. They think, I can't do this. And, I tell them you can do it. You don't know you don't know how strong you can be until you have to be that strong. And, so I feel like I can encourage them. I know where they are. I know what they need. I mean, I can't do the thing they need the most, which is to fix their child, but I can rally a lot of people to pray for them, and I can pray for them, but I can also help them when, the rent's due. And what are they going to do? Go back to work and leave their kid? Sometimes that's the choice they have to face. And so we can come in and pay the rent, and there's so many people who support Karis Heart Foundation. So it's not really me paying the rent. I'm just the one who gets to tell the person, I have the best job. But,
that's the thing you say all the time. You have the best job in the world. You get to be the face for so many other people's generosity that makes such a huge, huge, huge impact. And I know that as we're going, we'll talk about a little more of that in a minute, but I love that phrase, and you say it all the time.
It's true.
It is. It is so true. And having sat in so many circles of that, it's a really beautiful statement. And hearing you say it again, it just makes my heart full, and I love what's happening there.
So there are a lot of needs that people that are in these situations have. One of the things, there's so many different personality types. And I know that I am married to a woman that emotionally cares for people deeper than anyone that I've ever known. And she emotionally invests in the people, and she takes on their weight, and she just deeply, deeply cares. I don't have that gift. I practically want to care for people. Okay. So they've got a need. We can do this. We can do this. We can do this. And oftentimes I don't do such a great job of understanding and fulfilling that emotional need. So we kind of make a really good team in that. There are practical needs that people have that you've talked about, that you get the amazing opportunity to fix a well. You get the opportunity to pay rent, to take care of these practical needs, these tangible needs that people have as they're going through crisis. But there's also emotional needs that they have. There's spiritual needs that maybe they don't even know that they have. How do you balance those? How do you find the rhythm in those? And how is Karis Heart Foundation addressing both the practical needs and the emotional needs that these families have?
Well, we have a lot of conversations with people. I don't know that I balance it so well. My kids probably, I know growing up, my daughter would say, I can't hear another sad hospital story, Mom. So, I don't know. I just talk to people, we just talk to people, and they, I feel like, especially women, men too, but more so women, they want to talk to somebody who's been through what they've been through. And, lots of times I just listen. I mean, I know you put on here, one of these questions was, what do you say? What would you just say to someone navigating a health crisis with their child right now? And I wrote, I would listen, because they need to talk, and they need to talk to somebody they feel like understands. And so I feel like that's probably what I do the most, is listen. And they'll come back and they'll tell me how much that meant, and sometimes it's the littlest things, like somebody just sent me a message that we're getting ready to put out a newsletter. So I'd send out an email saying, do you want to be in the newsletter? Tell me what you want to say. And somebody said, of all the things you did, the blanket and the toy that you sent my child meant the most. And sometimes we'll give people thousands of dollars, and they'll say the thing that mattered the most was the toy or the blanket. And they still have those things, and they're very special. And I still have those things that Carrie had. I still had her toys. I have her toys. I have her blankets. I have all her stuff. And, I don't know. I think it's the Lord. It's not us. It's not me. It's the Lord.
Do you find that sometimes the emotional support that you give these families is even more important than the practical support that you give them?
Lots of times. It really depends on who it is and where they are and what they have. If they have a community, if they have friends, if they have people they can talk to who've been through it. Sometimes people are pretty desperate, so those practical needs are hard to compete with. But a lot of people, they just need to talk.
I've had a couple of times in life where moments that broke me, that later down the line, God uses them to comfort other people. What has that been like for you to see as you share your story of how you experienced heartbreak through losing Carrie, to see the way that you're now able to understand and relate and comfort other people who are going through the same things? What sense of maybe purpose and seeing God work through your brokenness, what does that give you?
Oh, it's awesome. It's incredible joy. And it's healing, it's healing, to help somebody else. It's not selfless really. It's the best way to go. It's the best way to heal. But I love it. It's so meaningful to me. It's my passion.
Can you tell us a story of where you've seen your story impact someone else's life?
Well, lots of time, I don't tell my story to Karis Heart family so much because Carrie died. And most of our families, their children don't die.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. But when I do talk to someone who has lost their child, I think that it is very meaningful to them that I'm functioning 17 years later and I'm smiling, and I can talk about her and I have a lot of good memories about her. And yeah.
I'm just processing through some of that. And you were talking about, the bags that you guys give out and things. And we're the recipient of one of those bags. In our situation, way, 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 way smaller than so many go through. But yet we talk about the videos and those, do you guys still do the gala?
No.
I knew that a lot of stuff had moved online and it just became a better way to do all that. And, did Jeff really want to keep playing songs at 1 a.m.? And
well, now, yes, that's not why we stopped.
And you've said several times, like, you just don't always know. And sometimes you're aware and but like so many times you wake up one day and everything's fine until it's not. And then you step in and you go, I don't know how. And, for our son, it was, small things. And it was just, long trips to Vandy and overnight things and lots of just very invasive appointments and stuff that went on. But it was a gift card, or it was, something to his favorite restaurant, or it was just a little something inside of a bag. And the boys still have the Karis Heart bag, and it goes every time someone is traveling, that gets used and stuck in, and there's parts of stuff that go in, and it's still a part of our, when I was putting luggage stuff up the other day, and it's still there. And there's just these moments and spaces of it. It isn't like you said, sometimes it's huge. It's house payments. It's literal water. I know we could all, talk about, John 4, and we love, the woman at the well, and, you're looking for this water and I could give you more, and we could have a great conversation around that. But like, you also need literal water. I mean, it's something you need, and being able to meet those needs. But like you said, I remember so many times sitting behind a camera and just going, 6 months of your house payment. And it was a gift card for a video game that like your kid just they sat in the hospital for 2 months.
Yeah.
And that video game was the one thing that gave that kid a little bit of sanity, and it gave that parent a little bit of, I'll say, peace to just be able to catch their breath. And what I love is, I heard a pastor say one time, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And what started as doing for one, for a pump, in a hospital of Jeff just going, this is crazy, led to something that you've been able to do for a lot. But I think you guys still wake up every day going, we just want to do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. And the reach has to be so much further than you ever imagined it would be when you started this, conversation. Like,
well, we get to help a lot of people. And, I was thinking, as you were talking about this one little fun little girl, oh my goodness, she's so cute. She's dealing with cancer. She's so cute. And I had sent a gift to her family, and her mom sent me the sweetest message. It really was a gift to the girl. It was like some bluey stuff, and she's a little kid. And so her mom said, oh, we had this horrible day. We had to do this and this and this. And we came home. We're so tired, and your package was on the porch, and we opened it up, and she loved it. So, oh my goodness, that was the best. And so I said, okay, what can I give her that's going to put a smile on her face? Because I want to send her something else. And you know what her mom said? She said she loves Taco Bell and she has cancer. So she's not hungry.
Yeah.
And so this was a big prayer request that this child would want to eat. And she said she loves Taco Bell. I can't remember what she said. She literally told me the actual thing from Taco Bell. So we got the kid a Taco Bell gift. We got them a Taco Bell gift card so that she could go to Taco Bell. And then we sent out a couple of Valentine's gifts to some people. And so we were sending one to her with just like a little book and some candy. And we went and got a Taco Bell gift card, put that in there for her. I mean, just think about how much it costs to buy somebody some Taco Bell and what a difference it makes in their lives. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference.
It's a lot more expensive than when we were kids, and I'm sure the food quality is going down.
I
love it so
$29,
much.
$39, $79 menu.
I may eat Taco Bell today. I mean, but I love it so much. But that is so good. I love that story, and I think the thing is sometimes, I guess I've got two thoughts. One, with that, we tend to want to. I think what I see in my heart and what I see in a lot of other people, we tend to want to meet people's needs in the way that we want them met, or that we think they need to be met. And meeting a need the way that they need it met is so different. And I think about that. This is probably, I don't know, maybe not the best transition or even on the same page, but I just remember sitting in the Karis Heart offices and doing these different things. And these kids would come in and they would have siblings with them because, it's not like a parent can come shoot a hour-long video, which is honestly what it took a lot of times, like 45 minutes to an hour. By the time we were crying and they were crying and getting everybody settled in, and this happened and that happened. And like, we would just be sitting there, and all of a sudden Reese would pop out with, Reese is just, I don't know, like, incredible friend of Jennifer's. I mean, they've known each other for years and years and years. And she and her husband are incredible people, but she would just pop out with a little stuffed animal or something, that these things that you all had. And like, literally just people like, this has just made my kid's day. And it doesn't, like, providing things like that isn't like, it's not like that was $1,000 animal. It's just really small things in the right moment, with the right heart and intention, change the atmosphere so much. And I just think we lose sight of that so many times. And anyway, just why I love that we're getting to hear this today, and why, I just so appreciate what you guys are doing, and just what Carrie means. Like, it's just, she's, super special kid. But I just love what her story is continuing to do. And, just so fierce. So many photos of her that I just see. She was just a hoot.
She was intense. She was a hoot. We had a lot of fun with her. She got to do a lot of things in her 7 months. She went on vacation. She went to the beach. She did a lot of things.
And Jennifer, I want to go back to something that you said a few minutes ago. And Robert and I, having been in ministry for 20, 30 years, have worked with people, ministered to people, had people in our congregations that have lost children before. I've seen the way that it can completely alter someone's life. I know people now that, because of the loss of a child 10, 15, 17 years ago, that they've never recovered. They've never gone back to work. They're still only surviving each day because of medication. And the statistics tell us that over 90% of couples that lose a child, their marriage doesn't survive it, because people grieve in different ways. How are you where you're at today? How has your and Jeff's marriage not only survived, but thrived through this and helped so many others? And how, maybe it's not losing a child, but everyone at some point in life is going to go through crisis. Where have you found that strength to keep going? What would you say to other families and other people that are going through crisis like that, and how to keep going and keep living life?
Well, I think maybe the rosy pic, it's not always as rosy as it looks from the outside. I think we all struggle, and I think we struggle because we're different. I grieve in complete despair, and Jeff grieves in anger. And everybody grieves differently. And so that's huge when you're going through loss, is to understand each other and how you grieve, and maybe not take that personally all the time, which is hard when you're dealing with grief. Because I feel like, the death of a child comes in like a wrecking ball and it splinters you. It's not something that binds you together because it's a mutual experience. It kills you. It shatters you. It makes you insecure. Loss makes you many, many bad things. And I think that Jeff and I, we both very much believe in what we're doing to help other people. We talk a lot about Karis Heart Foundation, but Jeff started a cardiology practice of his own and named it after Caring Hearts Cardiology. And, he's helping people every single day. And he very much, it's very, very meaningful to him. And Karis Heart Foundation is too. He is more the funds are the driving factor with Jeff, with Karis Heart Foundation, because he's pretty busy, but he makes such a difference in people's lives. And I think just being able to do the things that we do and just being stubborn. I think we're just stubborn. And the Lord, so I don't feel like I have a magic solution. And I feel like, we do it wrong a lot. So, but we just keep on putting one foot in front of the other.
And how did you do that as a mom?
I cannot say it enough. It was God who did it. It was not me who did it. There were a lot of people who came in and helped me. I have great kids. I love my kids. You say, what do I think about when I think about Carrie? I think about the same things I think about with my other kids. You love your kids. I don't know. I don't want to, and I don't know that heaven is like this, but I don't want to look back and think, oh, I should have done this. I want to do my best so that at least I can say, well, I did my best, We're
going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit more into how your faith carried you through some of this and still into the future.
Empowering leaders, enriching lives. That's the heart of Hire Ministry. They're dedicated to equipping Christian leaders with the tools and resources they need to thrive in their calling. Whether you're looking for leadership development, strategic planning, or community outreach strategies, Hire Ministries is here to help. Visit hireministries.com to learn more and thank them for sponsoring our podcast.
All right, well, we are back from our break. And Jennifer, I want to kind of pick up the conversation where we were just leaving off and talking about how your faith played such an important role in you guys not only surviving your loss and the tragedy, but really overcoming the tragedy and redeeming it into something that has impacted lives and had an eternal impact on people and on the kingdom of heaven. How did your faith hold you during Carrie's hospitalization and then the loss of your daughter?
I always felt like I had somebody I could talk to. I could always talk to the Lord. And the good thing about God is that he understands and, you don't have to worry about a misunderstanding. I think sometimes people struggle to ask God why, and I don't. I would ask him why. And lots of times he answered me. Whether it was through a thought, a book, a person, something I read. But how did my faith carry me? That's a loaded question. God is huge and he knows us and he loves us and he wants what's best for us. And so you got to think that there's a best there somewhere in the grief and the pain, there's a best. You got to find it.
How did your faith not crack under the weight of what you were experiencing?
I don't know if it didn't crack at times.
How did it
probably did.
Okay, but how did it not completely fall apart?
Well, God is so good. And we had a long history. God and I have a long history. I came to know the Lord at a very young age, and he's been with me my whole life. And he's good. And I believed that going in. So I guess in that respect, it's like when you build your house on the rock, I feel like the Lord is my rock. And, that's all over the Bible, right? How many times it says a rock and our redeemer, our fortress, our stronghold, or all these things. But God can be trusted. I can trust him. I do trust him.
I love there's a verse, Nahum. I just love the Lord is good. a refuge in times of trouble, and he cares for those who trust in him. And just as you've been talking the whole time, that verse has been running in my brain, and just thinking through that thought and that idea that, and again, I mean, everybody gets the freedom, and that's the beauty. I mean, it's a free will. It's not a forced into a situation, but it's the beauty of this journey. But I mean, everybody around the microphones here would agree with what you're saying. Like, without a trust in Jehovah God, Yahweh, and his son, and the indwelling of his spirit inside of us, in that relationship, survival just seems very, very different and complicated, and just living the day to day. And I just love that a refuge in times of trouble, when you were saying that you have a long journey, like a long time, a long relationship, and he just cares for those who trust in him. And I think that's such a big deal.
One time, shortly after Carrie died, I was doing a Bible study. It was more Bible study on Paul. And and so that was something that I was able to do in the morning, every morning. And one night I was just so sad, and I was just so sad about everything. I missed Carrie. It's really hard. And I said, Lord, how am I supposed to feel? What am I supposed to do? Am I not supposed to be heartbroken? Am I supposed to feel joyful? And then I went to bed. And then the next morning, in the Bible study I was doing, Beth Moore was talking about Paul, and when Paul and Silas had been beaten, and they were in prison, and they were in chains, and it was midnight, and they were praising the Lord. And she said, that is what you call a sacrifice of praise. When you praise the Lord when you don't want to and you don't feel like it. And then in the Bible study, because the Lord orchestrated it so perfectly, she went on to talk about a family that she knew who had lost a child, and how they praised the Lord through that. And I felt like that was the Lord's answer, to praise him. In the bad times, praise him. And it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't feel right. But when you continue, it does anesthetize the pain. Pain comes back, but it is a very, very powerful way to deal with it, I feel like.
Many people have lost their faith going through trials like you and Jeff experienced. Many people that have had what they would have considered before their suffering a strong faith, a good belief in God to deliver them. And in the midst of their trials and their struggles have prayed that, God, we know that you are able. We know, we've seen the stories, and yet things don't turn out the way that they want. What would you say to someone whose faith feels shaken or completely destroyed because of loss that they've experienced or suffering that they're currently going through?
I would say you went through something horrible that you didn't have a choice about, but this is something horrible that you do have a choice about. You can choose to have life, or you can choose to have death. You didn't choose what happened to you, but you can choose your response, and you can choose the rest of your life and the quality of it. And you have at your disposal the biggest resource in the world. And if you ignore it, you're shooting yourself in the foot, shooting yourself in the head.
What did your experience strip away from you that now, in looking back, you're grateful that it's gone?
A lot of fluff. I remember, there's been so many times over the years when, the heater will break, the appliance will break, and it's not an emergency. My definition of emergency is much different. Those things are annoyances, but it's not an emergency. It's not that big of a deal. It's really taken away a lot of that, stripped away a lot of stuff that I used to think was a big deal. It stressed me out. It doesn't stress me out anymore.
I think it's really hard for us to see Romans 8:28 when we're living in the midst of tragedy, that the Lord works all things for good. And I think it's really difficult in hindsight even to see, where do you see that God worked your suffering for good?
Well, I don't know that I see it all. I think that a lot of it I'm going to see on the other side. But I do hear all kinds of stories about, things that have changed, that have helped people in so many ways. And it's wonderful. I mean, just sitting down and looking over the questions and answering them, it just made me feel so good about Karis Heart Foundation and about the ways that our lives have changed. And, Carrie was a very defining moment in our lives, but she's not our whole life. Her life is to glorify God. And
I think God never promises to take pain away from us. He only promises to walk through it with us. It's something that we can cling to in the midst of our struggles, in the midst of our pain, in the midst of our suffering. In fact, Jesus kind of talks about that and says, in this life, you will have problems. You will have trials, but I will be there with you in it.
It's not going to.
He's the refuge in times of trouble. He's the reason we can take heart because he has overcome the world. And I think in that space and in that moment, it just gets, and look, I've had nothing even close to any of these. It's just, we've all, as we age, we lose parents and that kind of stuff happens. And you go through those things and you grieve and you move forward, and some of it's expected. I think at that moment in time, I think a lot of the conversation inside of this is when we look at things and we go, I'm in trouble. What's a refuge, is because something happened that we didn't expect. Something happened that was really upside down in our life and is just kind of there. And I just think that's the big thing in that remembrance of, in the middle of the trouble, that he's with us. He's the journey. You said earlier, we're doing the Bible recap. And so she says this at the end of every video, he's where the joy is. Like Jesus is where the joy is. And like in his presence, when we live our life pursuing and chasing after him, that even, Jesus' brother says that we should consider it joy when we face trials, because that moves us into the person that we need to be. And I know, and all that stuff doesn't make sense. And I say this almost every Sunday. It's really easy for me to preach this. It's really hard for me to live it in 10 minutes when the sermon's over. And so like what I'm saying to you, I am walking out and struggling with in 15 minutes. I'm not saying like I get it, but it's that journey of how we get there.
When we lose a child, or when we lose something, when we lose whatever, there's that loss and you can't change it, but there's a whole lot of things that we do to ourselves. And one of those things is guilt. A lot of people deal with a lot of different things. And I feel like, I dealt a little bit with it after Carrie died. And I realized that Carrie would not want me to be sad for the rest of my life. And there was a time when I felt a little bit guilty for laughing when she had died just a couple of months before. And then it just hit me that she doesn't want me to be sad. She is in heaven and she understands and she loves me. And she wants me to be happy. Like if you lost someone, they're not holding it against you. They're not sitting in heaven saying, I can't believe they did whatever. They want you to live a good life. They want you to be happy. And God wants you to be happy. He says he came that we'd have abundant life. And so if you're not living an abundant life, which it's hard to do when you first lose someone, I totally get that. I totally agree. But look for the why and ask God, what is it? I know one thing that a lot of people do is they don't talk about their person that they lost. And that's another thing you do to yourself,
I do that. I lost my dad 6 years ago, and he was my best friend, and just incredible. And I don't like to talk about him. And I know that that's not healthy. My wife tells me all the time that's not healthy at all. But it's easier just to kind of bury it, and pretend like it didn't exist. Pretend like, yeah, he's going to come back. He's going to come home at some point. So I do that. So I understand that. And I know that it's not healthy.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that we put on ourselves a lot of pain that we put on ourselves that we don't have to.
Yeah. You told a story in the break of how you kind of lived this out and going to the movies with some friends. Would you mind sharing that? I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah. It was shortly after Carrie died, and a sweet friend of mine was just trying to cheer me up. And we went to a movie, and it was really funny. And I laughed. And afterwards, we were in the bathroom, and I just looked in the mirror, and I just thought, oh yeah, this is my life. I'm living this. I wish I could wake up from this bad dream, and that's when it really hit me that I felt guilty for laughing because I had lost Carrie, and here I was laughing at a movie. And that's when it really hit me that Carrie wouldn't want me to be sad. She would want me to be happy. She knows things that I can't even imagine now. In heaven, I can't even imagine what she's doing, what she's thinking, but she knows the whole picture and she understands why.
Do you remember what movie that was?
Yeah, it was with Zac Efron, 30 again, or what 17 again.
Yes.
When he wanted to go back and be the high school basketball player.
Matthew Perry played the older version of him. I literally just watched that like 2 months ago.
Let's turn the page a little bit and let's talk. We've touched a lot on what you're doing, the work you're doing with Karis Heart Foundation, but I want to get into specifics for our listeners on what exactly it is that you guys do, how they can get involved. Want to really spread the word about what you guys are doing. Not that you need us to spread the word in any way, because you guys are doing phenomenal. But what exactly does Karis Heart Foundation do for families today?
We seek to meet their need. So we have done a lot of crazy things over the years. The most common things we do are help with traveling expenses, like, transportation, gas cards. Your car's broken and you got to go to Vanderbilt. We'll help with car repairs. Got a lot of people on that team, a lot of people who help with that. We do meals when you're out of town. We do a lot of that. But we also do things like pay rent and pay mortgage. We helped board a dog one time when the family went out of town. We've helped with funeral expenses over the years, medical needs that aren't covered by insurance. We've done some of that. We just really say, what is it that you need? And we try to do that. Can't always, but we try.
How does someone who is in need of the resources that Karis Heart Foundation offers, what's that process look like for the family, for the individual?
It's very simple. We have an application on our website, which is karisheartfoundation.org. Kari spelled Kari. But if you Google me, Jennifer Schoondyk, if you Google my husband, Jeff Schoondyk, you will find us.
And we will have all the links to everything that you would need in our show notes.
Yes. So our application is very easy. You can do it on a phone in 5 minutes. And that application comes to my email, and then I get in touch with you.
So that comes to you. You're the one.
It comes to me. I'm the one. God forbid I die someday.
How can people help? How can people get involved with what you're doing?
Well, there's a lot of fun ways, and there's a lot of awesome people out there who help. We give away a lot of stuff. People donate toys. We have this beautiful, beautiful lady who crochets and knits blankets that we give to babies. They donate preemie clothes. We give away a lot of preemie clothes. People give stuff all the time. They'll say, oh, my child is not in this size diapers anymore. Can you give them to somebody? Yes, we can. And they donate stuff. We give away care packages, and those packages are full of all kinds of things. And so I have a whole little sheet on that. And sometimes churches will say, well, we want to pack, 10 carrying bags. One time a company came in and packed 200 carrying bags. They bought everything that went into a carrying bag, and it's worth about $85. So that's a lot of stuff. We give away a lot of gift cards. And like if somebody gave you a gift card to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or something like that you're not going to use, we can use it. Or if you just want to get one, Taco Bell, we can use it. We don't really use the big ones as much, but we could, if you have like Texas Roadhouse or something expensive, we can give that away. But what we're looking for really is the family who's in the hospital and they're just going through the drive-through, or they're getting something in the hospital. There's a Subway, a Pizza Hut, at Vanderbilt. A lot of our people go to Vanderbilt. So gift cards are great. Gifts are great. Of course, money is huge. Prayer is huge. We're pretty active on our Facebook page. We post a lot of prayer requests. We don't post all our kids because some people don't want to be posted. But we do have a lot of faces on there, and people pray for those. And, those families will get on there and they see that, and they'll see, 50 messages from people saying, I'm praying for this, or they'll literally sometimes post their prayer that they prayed. And it's just so, so sweet. And, never fails. I'll be out. I was just out at Cafe Lola the other day, and I saw somebody I hadn't seen in 20 years. And she said, I'm following you. I pray for those kids. And she doesn't post things, but she prays for them. That's the big thing. And so pray for our kids. Come to our events. We're having a fundraising campaign in April. We call it Critical Care Campaign. And people donate, and there are companies that'll donate $5,000, and there are people who will donate $25. And it's just a really neat thing, and it helps us raise funds. We also have an auction that we do in November, and lots of businesses and individuals donate all kinds of things to do in our silent auction. So there's that. You can always contact me. You know, sometimes people have these crazy things. One time somebody said, I really want to clean somebody's house. I really feel like I should clean somebody's house. And I thought, oh, that's going to be an interesting one. And then the next week I met this lady who said, I got to bring my kid home, but the house has to be, you know, germ-free, spot-free, totally clean. And they went to the same church. Can you believe that?
That's
they went
crazy.
to Grace Fellowship. So it's huge.
Yeah.
And, you know, they didn't know each other. But, you know, the one who wanted to clean went in and cleaned her house, and the lady came home with her child, and it was just the neatest thing. But so, you know, there's always things that God has up his sleeve that I don't know about. So if you have some skill or something you want to do, give me a call. Maybe it can work.
That's amazing. Yeah. So basically you're saying if you have something that the Lord has put on you right now that you're saying, I think this would help, reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out. You can use it. Is there a moment that you realized this is really meaningful? God is up to something here.
All the time. I mean, there's times when I'm literally sitting at my desk crying because I'm just so touched by the things God will do and the things other people will do. I mean, people are so good. You know, I mean, there's so many, I know nobody's good. We say that and it's true, but people do a lot of good things, and you don't see them so much on the news. But they do. Quiet people going about their lives, just doing the sweetest things.
It's amazing.
And it's very touching. It happens all the time. As I said, I love my job. I get to see the good that people do. I get to see the good that happens in people's lives.
Jennifer, a lot of people listening to our show right now, they haven't lost a child, but maybe they've lost a marriage, they've lost a dream, they've lost a job. What would you say to them as they're listening to this, feeling like they're supposed to be past it by now? I shouldn't still feel this way. What encouragement would you give them?
Well, it's not over till it's over. So maybe you still feel that way, but maybe you won't next month. Maybe you won't next year. You're still here for a reason. You know, I feel like God's going to use us till we die. You know, if they're stuck in it, I would encourage them to maybe look for somebody to talk to. Look for somebody who's gone through the same situation, somebody that they respect, and reach out to them. But just because you feel that way now and you feel like it's never going to change, that doesn't mean it's never going to change. It could very well get better, and you very well could do something huge for somebody next week. Somebody that you love and you want to help.
Kind of a follow-up, and maybe you just answered this, but I think that we all have moments when grief or pain feels overwhelming. What's one simple step or process that you would say that someone who's going through those moments could do to help them stay present?
Do something for someone. You know, it could be just pay for the person in the drive-through line behind you. It could be, you know, just open the door for somebody. It could just be smile.
Sometimes just showing up. It's the greatest gift.
Just showing up. Sometimes it's a text. I know when we were in the hospital with Karis, people sent me the sweetest texts. But yeah, when you feel terrible, try doing something that you think is good for somebody. It generally makes you feel a little better.
I love that. Robert, any other thoughts?
No, I'm just so grateful. I love what's happening. I love just the impact that it continues to make. I love being able to, it's hard to see stories on social media and different spaces, but I love that there's someone who's fighting for those families and in the trenches with them, not just, you know, like you are praying blessing and good favor towards them, but not just saying that. You guys are in the trenches, you're fighting. And I love the fact that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have come alongside that mission throughout the years that continue to make, like what you say, you have the greatest job ever, that make that great job possible because of their generosity and what's going on. And I continue to, and just thankful for what's happening. So thank you. Yeah.
Jennifer, is there anything that we haven't touched on today that you would like to talk about before we wrap this up?
One thing that I feel is, I feel like sometimes people hear about needs, like people in the hospital or people, whatever the needs that you hear that are breaking your heart, and people feel overwhelmed by them. And so they don't do anything and I've been there myself in times when I just feel like this need is so big. What could I even do? And I want to encourage those people that, to do something anyway, because even if they need $10,000 and you can only give 10, that's 10 more than they had. And that also will touch their hearts. And the problem is that person's, but you're helping them. And I just want people to be encouraged to do something, even if it's small, even if they don't think it's enough, it's still something, and it will bless that person, and it will also bless them.
Do what you can.
Do what you can.
Yeah. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Want all our listeners to be sure that they know that you can find out more at karisheartfoundation.org. And so be sure to find that. We'll have that in the show notes. Go support them, volunteer with them, give your resources to help, because what they're doing really, really matters and is carrying on Karis' legacy in the lives of so many other people. So some stories change you, not because they're loud, not because they're dramatic, but because they're honest. Today wasn't just about heart health. It wasn't just about grief. It wasn't even about one family's loss. It was about what happens when suffering collides with faith and purpose refuses to disappear. Suffering doesn't disqualify you from purpose. It often clarifies purpose. Jennifer and Jeff didn't choose their story, but they chose what to do with it. And that choice is impacting lives far beyond their own. So if you know someone who's carrying quiet grief, walking through uncertainty, or trying to lead while hurting, send them this episode. Not because it fixes anything, but because it reminds them that they're not alone. And maybe that's all we need sometimes. A reminder that pain doesn't mean God is absent. A reminder that legacy can rise from loss. And a reminder that even in the valley, there's still work worth doing. So if this conversation encouraged you, do us a favor. Subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a review. Comment on YouTube. Share this episode with someone who needs it. And we'll see you next week right here on The Porch.